All right, welcome to Planet Nine Crunch. This is Doug Gibson, and today we have the treat of speaking to Joe Gandelman, who has been a professional ventriloquist for how long, Joe? How long?
Well, gee, it's been, I went full time in 1990, so in November to be 36, 40,
36, 36
36
years,
years.
36 years.
Until I flunked math, yes.
And welcome to the show, by the way, I should say that. Joe lives in San Diego, and he works all over the country.
That's right.
But you were originally, the same as me, a journalist, maybe more esteemed, who knows. But tell me about your journalism career.
Well, I always tell people I work for a newspaper. I used to work for dummies. Now they work for me. But I would, I started one. I mean, go without spending the whole hour here talking about it. I really wanted to be an actor, and my parents talked me out of it. And we had a theater group called the Amity Theater Music Workshop in Connecticut, and they would actually take a play and rehearse for 6 weeks as part of the summer school. Students would do the musical score in an orchestra pit, and the most famous person to come out of that was William Knight, who became William Atherton, who was the guy with the red hair who let the ghost go in Ghostbusters.
Yes.
He was the obnoxious media guy in Die Hard.
Oh,
he played a character actor. So they talked me out of it at the last minute. I really wanted to be an actor, and I had been reading Dracula, and of course the character of Dracula was a journalist, and I thought that's interesting. Maybe I'll become a journalist. That's what planted the seed. And of course, I was then getting interested in politics and everything, and I was reading tons of newspapers. So those things that you don't see much anymore.
Yeah.
So basically, I went to Colgate, got my BA. I was editor of the Colgate, one of the editors of the Colgate News, and we had 2 newspapers. I was in the conservative newspapers, a conservative one, a liberal one. This was back in the days of the Vietnam War, and later they merged long after I left. But then I got my bachelor's in political science at Colgate. Mm-hmm. Then I got my master's at the Middle School of Journalism at Northwestern.
Oh, that's pretty prestigious.
Very good, prestigious one. And my senior year of Colgate, I was able to go to India, and with my political science professor, who was going there for research, so I had one-on-one, he arranged for me to intern on the Hindustan Times Evening News in New Delhi. So I was an intern on an Indian newspaper. And I was there for about 5 months.
And that's still around, because I see it sometimes.
It's still around. It's huge. It's always been great. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a very, really good newspaper. And then after journalism school, when I got my master's, then I went back to India as a freelance. And I was there for 73. Got there in September of 73 and left in May of 1976. And I used to write for the Chicago Daily News. I self-syndicated. I had about 20 newspapers all over the world that read my articles. They sent me whatever they paid, the stringers. And then I went to Spain, and I became the special correspondent, which is a glorified stringer for the Christian Science Monitor.
Okay.
And I did some stuff for Newsweek when they brought me in when Franco was starting to die. And then and National Public Radio's All Things Considered had me do radio broadcasts from there, reports from Madrid. And then I went back to the United States, and I looked for a job. I was at my parents' house for a year, and I wound up on the Wichita Eagle Beacon in Kansas for 2 years. And then I wound up where I really wanted to be, except for Miami's where I wanted to be, but the San Diego Union. And I was there from 1982 through January of 1990.
It's interesting because I'm learning so much here. I only knew of you being on the San Diego paper.
Oh, I was.
Yeah. It must have been fascinating to be in India in the 1970s, right?
Oh, it was very, very interesting. Of course, it's totally different now because it's all built up. They got all the call center money and other stuff. There was only one TV station, and it was Mrs. Gandhi's TV station. And I think they ran, it was all just basically government stuff. Mm-hmm. And in Spain, under Franco, they were running Two's Company, but the British version.
Oh, okay.
Jack in Spanish. Yeah, wow. So they had more material in Spain to watch.
That reminds me of when I lived in Peru. This was as a Mormon missionary. I turned on the TV one time, and you haven't lived since you see All in the Family's Archie Bunker speaking in Spanish.
Yeah.
But anyways, when I first met you, you were a columnist for Kegel Cartoons.
Yeah, I was doing. I left the newspaper in 1990, but I kept my journalism gene around by tinkering with a blog.
Mm.
Some of the stories are good, some aren't that good, but I tried different styles on it. And Kegel cartoons, I had asked them about doing a column for them, and they agreed, and I did that for quite a few years.
And
It's syndicated all over.
I should mention that you have a blog called The Moderate Voice, moderatevoice.com. We'll put a link to it. And you do
Okay.
have a really good wide variety of cartoons and articles
Yeah.
on different
Yeah.
subjects. I've posted a few things
Yes.
from the I haven't done much recently. I should. Okay, get some on there. And I really enjoy that website. It's a fine website. Tell
Thank
us
you.
about what got you to go into ventriloquism.
Well, as a kid, I really, I only liked a couple of I love ventriloquists. I love Paul Winchell and Jerry Mahoney, but I didn't like the fact that he was always smiling in the talked. And Sherry Lewis, I thought she killed Howdy Doody because she replaced the Howdy Doody show,
Hmm.
and I resented that. And she was as Jimmy Nelson, who did the NESTLS. I said,
Yeah.
"What do you think of Sherry Lewis?" And he said, "Well, I can't watch her much because I'm a diabetic." And Jimmy, the one I liked was Jimmy Nelson, who did the old Nestle's Quick commercials,
Hmm.
and he later became my mentor. Anyway, so long story short, when I was working at Wichita, I like everybody, most of the people in Wichita, we didn't want to be in Wichita.
Yeah, exactly.
Wichita is actually, I heard, a very beautiful city now, but when I was there, it was less beautiful than it is now. And I tell people I spent the longest 10 years of my life during my 2 years in Wichita, Kansas. And so to relieve stress, I went to a magic shop, which was then a very famous magic shop, and I bought an Australian book on ventriloquism and a little pull string ventriloquist dummy. And I tinkered with it to relieve stress. Then when I got to San Diego Union was an absolute snake pit of office politics. Really.
Well, that's not uncommon for newspapers, unfortunately.
That's right. It was really a snake pit. So to relieve stress, I was the autograph collector, and I wrote to Paul Winchell and thanked him for all his wonderful performances, and said, "I'd like to find out where to get a better dummy because I have one that was at a toy store, and I can't find any at I got one that was from a magic shop. I couldn't get any from a toy store." And he said, "Well, you got to go to a real magic shop because many ventriloquists are magicians. Many magicians are ventriloquists." And sure enough, I got one called. Um, the first one was called. He was in an army costume, but he was bigger than me. It was a monster stage jingo written by Chuck Jackson, big. And and people said, he looks bigger than you when he's on the stand. So I got a puppet called a Handsome Harry, and I tinkered with that. And then I went to a guy in Washington State, Dick Whiteman, had a thing called Captain Dick's Dummy Depot. He was the IRS spokesman, and everybody loved him. He was great. He was the perfect spokesman. He was just so nice.
Well,
And
today the perfect spokesman for the IRS would be someone who could say nothing. Okay.
yeah, oh, they loved Dick Whiteman. Ah, he was on all the TV shows, and he did his ventriloquism as a hobby, and he trade dummies or sell you dummies. And I traded my Handsome Harry for one that was made by Chuck Jackson.
Hmm.
So I started doing it part time, and then I felt that I hated the newspaper so much by the time 1990 ran around that I was running around trying to get jobs on other newspapers. I was trying to get jobs on non-newspapers. I didn't care what it was, just to get out. And I made the decision to quit and leave the newspaper, which I did on November 9th, 1990. I had nothing lined up whatsoever, but I just quit.
That's fascinating. And you've managed to keep a career going for
Yep,
35 plus years.
that's right.
Tell us how it was in the early days as you were starting out.
Um, well, when I started out, well, the joke in my act is I wanted to. It was very difficult starting out because I had no agents lined up. That's
Yeah.
true. And I thought there's Jewish wines, and I thought I started a Jewish wine company. I got a great Jewish wine, but nobody bought it.
Mm.
Nobody wanted wines by Lipschitz. I just don't. That's in my act,
Yeah.
but it was very tough. I
Um,
mailed envelopes. I took out these very costly um, Yellow Pages ads that got me nothing. And you had to sign a contract. It was a massive loss. But I kept just contacting people and mailing and doing shows and getting quotations. And then I finally got a website. Put the website up with the quotations.
when did it start coming together? Start getting more
Um,
popular?
well, I think I left in 1990, probably about 95 or something
So
like
you
that.
had perseverance, right? You had to have some resilience
Yes.
and
Yeah. Well,
patience, right?
because first of all, I was totally self-taught with ventriloquism, self-taught. There was a
Hmm.
course you could get from the Mirror Studios that Jeff Dunham took and Willie Tyler took, which was a correspondence course. You read the lessons and send in a written test, and they give you marks. They give you a diploma at the end. But it really worked, and I did that course like I was studying for a master's degree, and but um, when you start off, you have a lot of shows that really bomb, and I had a lot of shows that bombed, and you feel horrible. You feel like you've been murdered. But I would get up and do another one and try to improve it.
That's fascinating because a lot of people will quit if it's not going their
Yeah.
way in a while. But you,
Or the other thing is imitating people. I never imitated anybody, although I just did my own thing. But at the beginning, I went to a comedy coach who tried me to imitate another ventriloquist who had coached who won Star Search. It was an absolute disaster. Nothing. He didn't help me one bit. He wanted me to come out smoking a cigarette. I didn't smoke cigarettes. He gave me a dialogue that wasn't me at all, and he changed the whole way I deliver my lines. And a lady saw me at a party and said, "Joe, what happened to you? Why did you ruin your act? Who are you trying to be?" And I thought, the hell with him. And I went back to doing my thing. It's interesting though. My sister Nona, who is a promoter and she has something called Maven Productions, and she handles Jane Goodell. She worked for Jane Goodell, the chimpanzee lady, for many years, being her PR person, being vice president at the institute, and she still has Maven Productions. And there's a reason I was telling you that. Shoot. Uh,
well, I remember I know the name Maven Productions. I've seen
yeah,
that
that's
before.
it. So, but anyway, make a long story short, I she has a friend who's a very big producer. He produced a lot of stage things and rock shows in Colorado. He told her he sees a lot of Jack Benny in me. The way I do use the pauses, the way the characters all give me a hard time, and I never thought about that because my whole thing is all the puppets give me a hard time. They pick on fewer people in the audience, but they pick on me through the whole show.
Talking, if you don't mind, do you have a puppet we can just watch some of the stuff right now going on?
Well, I'll just bring one out for a minute here.
Okay.
I'll just bring a couple out really fast.
My producer Jack Sinope is a huge fan of ventriloquism. He had us do something on McCarthy and Bergen recently.
Oh yes.
Yeah. And so yeah, show us an example, because I'm in awe of people who are ventriloquists. I don't know
And
how they do it.
and Edgar Bergen moved his lips.
He did. I noticed that. Yeah, he did.
Unless you go back and look at the old Vitaphones that show him in vaudeville, he's not moving his lips as much. But once you got the radio show, and this is
He didn't feel the
documented.
pressure,
He,
perhaps.
yeah, he had a radio show, and people laughed at him when he did movies. So he never really. Candice Bergen said her father really didn't even practice anymore because people liked him because of Edgar Bergen. But it's very hard for ventriloquists today to come out and try to do a show and move their lips like that.
Well,
Anyway,
show us something. I'd love to see it. You once
see.
gave a demonstration at our house, and I loved it at the time.
Oh yeah. Well, this is my main character who was recently painted. He was built in 1992, and he just got redressed and repainted. He's the one I like the best. There's 3 versions of him. The one I got at Captain Dick's. This is the version number 2. It was built in 1992, and there's one more built in 1994. And I like this one the best. So he's the one I use most of the time, unless he's being fixed. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Come on. Takes a while. Will you come out now? All right, all right. Nag, nag, nag. Stop it. Hey, my God. Wow, look at this. Thinking all year. Come on, man. Wow. Here we go. Let's see. What is going on here? It's Doug Gibson. I know you. Remember him? I saw that. And there's Joe. Hello, Joe. How you doing, Joe?
Joe's over there. Hi.
How you doing, Joe? What do you have to say to Joe? Hey, stop that.
Oh.
Doing good? I'm doing great. Really? Yes. I was telling him about the shows I do. He sucks. Hey, don't say that. I drew a show. I did a show last week. I drew a line 4 blocks long, and then they took his chalk away. If they didn't do that, I would have drawn a line 20 blocks long. And you know Spanish? I sure do. I did a show right near the border, and they gave me a name. El grande stupido. What does that mean? Oh, it means you're talented. What? El grande stupido? Doug, everybody watching this is going to know that I'm the biggest grande stupido they've seen. Oh, they know already. Sure. Got some girlfriends out there? Hello. How you doing? But Doug, can I tell you something? Can I brag? I don't care. Do whatever. Jump on the lake. I don't here. John is very good to work because there's a lot of respect in this relationship. And I know you got the same respect from Joe. Joe feels this way about you. And John is very level-headed, doesn't do anything with it. So this is John. Thank you. He likes you. Can I get a raise? What? Can I get a raise in your show? You want a raise in my show? Yeah. A raise? Yeah. How's this? You cut it out. 1 second raise? Get where you start it? Oh man, can't take that anywhere.
Oh, that is great.
I'm gonna put you down because you're making all these wisecracks. What do you plan to do when you're as big as me? Diet. I am on a diet, slim fast, Lynn Chance. A retention problem. He retains Frito. Oh, come on. Well, that's John. And then I have like, I might use 20 or 30, well, not 20, 15 different characters in my act. I go boom, boom, boom with lots of characters. And I know I love dogs, so say hello to Doug. Hey!
Hey, I have 2 dogs.
Where are they?
Not here.
Tell Doug your name. Smiley. Does he look smiley? Give Doug. Now see Doug smile. So give him a nice smile. Ready? All right. 1, 2, 3. Is that a beautiful smile? He doesn't like it.
I think it's a great smile.
Thank you. Give him one more. 1, 2, 3.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Thank you. That's all you get. You're in a miserable mood. Now my brother's tail got cut off. Your brother's tail got cut off. My brother's tail got cut off. What's he gonna do? He'll go to a retail store.
Oh, that was funny, but it's such a 10-cent joke.
And you like little babies?
Yes.
Everybody likes. Who doesn't like a little baby except a parent at 2:00 in the morning? Come out. Come on. I think Joe likes little babies. Want to say hello? Come on. Very sweet.
Oh.
Ooh. But if I go like this, I go like that, I go like that. You burp it. Is he looking? He's looking at you.
He looks adorable.
He hasn't looked at me. Look at my face. Ah, do you need a diaper change? No, you do. You want some milk? No. What do you want? Jack Daniels? No. You want some baby food? No. What do you want? Macaroni and cheese. What do you want? The keys to your car. Keys. You're too short to see over a car steering wheel. So are you. And I got a talking Pete, so I got other stuff here.
Well, that's fantastic. You know what I love about a talented ventriloquist is they seem to have personalities.
Well, I tell you, people say, what do you like about it? I tell people I'm in a totally different space when I do my show, and even, I don't know if I would have done one after my son passed away, but even when I've done shows when something really bad has happened, I can get, usually a couple of times it didn't work at all and the show was horrendous. Usually I can get myself into that space where I'm living in a different reality. So when I'm talking to them, I know I'm moving them out, but I'm talking to them. It's sort of like a politician with their political consultant,
Talk.
Yeah.
How long does that average show you do last?
Well, I've had people ask for 30-minute shows. Some fairs want 30-minute shows. I've had people ask for 45-minute shows. I like doing for adults and kids an hour show. And I'm going to be flying to North Dakota on the 29th to do a show at 12 a.m. on March 30th. It's going to be a high school prom.
Wow, 12 a.m.
I'm looking forward to that 45-minute show because what I plan to do is to get, and I'm not going to make much on it because I'm very insistent on shipping certain puppets there. I want them to have the ventriloquist mask to put on their face. I want the elephant that squirts at them. I want to have the dragon with the smoke, and I may bring the pizza as well, and the zombie because I have a zombie. You shake his hand and the arm comes off in your hand.
That's fantastic.
I love stuff, but I want to do that, and I want to get the kids up at the end, let them try to make the puppets talk. So I can't wait for that. So typically, like if I do a library show, or I'm doing, I have a whole bunch I do shows for churches, a lot of shows for the Jewish community. Usually I recommend you go an hour because what I'll do is at the end of the show, I'll give them a very quick how to do ventriloquism lesson, and the kids will get up and try the
Oh,
puppets.
the kids would love that, wouldn't they?
I said, well, the funniest response I got, I answer a question, they've got to answer back. This was a kindergartner at a school, and I had done assemblies there because I do lots of schools. So if you're watching right now and have a school, call me. Go to familyentertainer.com and do book me for school. But anyway, I did the morning show assemblies for the school, and they said, Mr. Gandelman, could you agree to just do one for the afternoon kindergarten? And I said, well, sure. So I went and did the same show in a kindergarten class, and I got to the how to do ventriloquism bit. So this kindergarten, kindergarten boy got up, took my main puppet. I let them actually try my main puppet. It's very expensive, but I let them try that. Leathers on it, and he had the mouth down perfectly. I said, "What's your name?" He said, "Kyle." I said, "How old are you, Kyle?" He said, "0." I said, "0? You're sort of big for 0. What did you eat to grow so young?" And the kindergartner said, "Steroids."
Kids. Yeah,
You never know what to
that
say.
reminds me of was it Art Linkletter? He used to have a show
Yes.
called Kids Say the Darndest
Yes.
Things.
Oh, it's so funny what they say.
Yeah, and so try to give our listeners, our viewers, what it's like traveling all over the country back and forth.
I like to travel. I want to travel more because, with the illness that my son had, for the past 18 months, I really neglected things I needed to do in my business to my very big detriment. But I love to travel, and I have a new used car. I had the Dodge Caravan, but now I've got the Chrysler Voyager, and it's really like it's the same body as the Dodge. It's a huge storage space. Fits all my puppets. Everything works so beautiful in it, and I like driving to gigs. And if I have to, I'll fly, like the one to North Dakota. And I'm doing on this Jewish holiday of Purim. I'm doing one show on Thursday night in Oxnard. That's about an hour and a half above LA.
Yeah, I grew up in Long Beach. I figure, yeah.
Be over about 9:30 or 9. I'll be in my car at 9:30. I'm going to drive all the way down. I know I'll pull over to a rest stop. I just ordered one of those alarm clocks with extra strong alarm on it. And I'm going to drive as much as I can, probably pull over to rest stop for the last hour sleeping. Then I'm doing 3 shows at a Jewish school. And then I have another Purim show in the evening. So that's one of my busiest days in a long time.
So that's what's so interesting about being an independent entertainer is you're going from here to there to there.
I like
it. You love it, pursuing your art. You've been doing it for 35 years. You got to love it.
It's hard to do it for one thing. God, thank you for Sirius XM Radio. Thank you so much. That's what does it, because I can put on so many channels.
Well, I love Sirius also, except I own stock in it, but I don't have it in my car right now.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, so one more thing. Tell us a couple of things. You told me earlier before the show you're going to be in New Mexico. And
New Mexico.
You're also going to be, was it in Colorado or
El Paso County Fair in Callahan, Colorado. And people say, what's the strangest shows you've done? Well, I say the strangest were the shows I've done at a nudist colony.
A nudist colony? Did you have a nude? No, I shouldn't say that.
No, we didn't do that. The first time I went, I felt, I knew what it must, I realized what it must feel like to be black, because people looked at me saying, he's wearing clothes. It wasn't the last couple of times. This goes back. I didn't, my puppets weren't. But I'm going to tell you one thing about a nudist colony. The body is not beautiful. Nobody you'd like to see in a nudist colony is in a nudist colony.
Well, Jerry Seinfeld said in that show, there's good nudity and there's bad nudity. On the Seinfeld episode. Well, okay, but I mean, I don't know how many people have done ventriloquism in a nudist colony. That's a hard one to top, definitely. Now, last year you were at Weber County Fair here in August.
Yes.
And you did say that you walked around doing your show.
They wanted me to walk around.
What's that like?
I wish they had me do the show, because I like the stage show better.
Yeah, of course.
Walking around, there's different ways people do it. There's some people, you walk around and joke with people. Some people stay in one area and walk around a little bit and stay a long time. What I like to do is walk around and hit as many people as possible. Just say 1 or 2 funny jokes with them and walk around here, then put that puppet away and come back with another one. So I might be using 8 or 10 puppets during the day, walking around with the elephant who says it's raining. I look up, I said, there's no clouds, and he squirts me in the face with because it's like a rigged up to squirt. If kids laugh, they'll squirt
Oh,
the
kids
kids.
will laugh at crazy like that.
Yeah, yeah. Or and then with the zombie wants his hand to be shaken, and then he says, "Shake my hand." They grab the hand, the whole arm comes off. He says, "I said shake my hand, not take my hand." Or the main character. So I just walk around and joke with people, and joke with the vendors. Like my turkey was in front of the turkey leg thing, screaming.
Ah, that's really funny.
I did a video of that. Yeah, so I like doing walk around.
So you've done schools, right? My wife teaches third grade.
Lots.
So have you done a lot of like assemblies you go to?
I do lots of assemblies. I
And
do them anywhere where they want
I'm
to have
going to
them.
ask a particularly, might be interesting question. Have kids changed any over 30 years?
Yeah, when I first started doing it, and they changed after COVID as well. They're getting back to it now, but when I first started doing it, this was like what first kids show I did was 1989 before I went full time. Figured 1990. I'd have several. I'd have several people at elementary schools say, "You're going to like all the kids here, but just ignore the creepy sixth graders because they're the ones who were acting out, right?"
Hmm.
Gradually became you're going to like everybody here, but it just ignore the creepy fifth and sixth graders. Just ignore the fifth. It's going down.
Oh, so now, okay,
Social media and
now
all that
beware
stuff.
those third graders now, right?
Yeah, really. But they said it even to fourth graders.
That's interesting.
I
I,
haven't noticed. The kids to me are all the same.
yeah,
They haven't changed that much.
I can't believe my wife is a school teacher, and I don't know how she does it. I plan to substitute teach one day, but you're not getting me anything under eighth grade, okay?
Right.
Um, but so tell me, it just came to mind. How was it making a living during COVID era?
It was horrible. It was terrible. It was March. I guess when they first diagnosed it, all
Hmm.
my shows for the year were canceled. Every
Oh my
single bit.
goodness, it's awful.
And I got that money from Uncle Sam, which I would have not been able to do without it. They'll probably never do it again for me, but that's what saved me. And but I did do some shows and some Jewish groups because they didn't. There were some real Orthodox Jewish groups in LA that they didn't wear masks. Um, and a couple of them I went up and I wore a mask. And once I didn't wear a mask for the heck of it. I did get COVID later, but not because of them. Very bad COVID. But I mean, uh, I wore a mask. One place had me wear a mask in an eye shield. I had a picture of that.
Hmm.
And then a seniors facility had me wear a mask that totally covered my lips. I said, "You're making my job easy today."
Did you do any shows on Zoom? I'm just wondering.
I did a lot on Zoom.
Okay.
I bought these lights now were sort of Zoom lights that I got. I bought Zoom lights. I tried the green screen, but some puppets didn't work on that. They were transparent. So I right now I don't have my background up. Usually I have my background. I'll just put it back, but I don't do green screen anymore. But I did. The biggest one was for Canada. I forget what was it. 11,000 kids watching my show on
11,000.
in Canada. It was their Red Sweater Day, which I believe is the same as their Blue Sweater Day, whatever it is. It's the same as Red Ribbon Week. It's about bullying. And they had me do a show. And then I did a lot of shows on Zoom for camp in Florida, private shows, school for a very, very high, very prominent school in New York. A lot of many Zoom shows. And you can interact on Zoom.
Yeah, you can. You can.
You can point to people. I found it was really, I didn't mind doing Zoom shows.
What's funny is Zoom just went away and now replaced by Teams, I guess now.
But by what?
Microsoft is telling me that Zoom's gone. Now we have Teams.
Teams?
Teams. Yeah, same thing though, essentially.
Hmm.
Okay, I was wondering, do you ever stray into? I have a hard time thinking of ventriloquists would do this, but do you ever stray into politics?
In my show?
Yeah,
Seldom.
seldom, huh? Okay.
People have no sense of humor with that anymore. You better really.
You know what? I think you're right. That's how it really happened, hasn't it?
The Capital Steps was one of my favorite groups.
Oh, they were good. They were good.
Albums, and they went out of business a couple of years ago because people aren't amused.
Yeah, you know what?
And I had a joke. It goes back, but probably when Washington was president. Tell me something about George Washington. He never told a lie. Then how was he elected? I did that for years, and one day people booed me.
Really?
I was referring to the person who they liked who was president.
Well, you and I both know the shows that are on TV are designed to get you as angry as possible, right?
Oh, I hate those shows.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
I really tried to stop watching all of these cable news shows because you see the cable news shows, they get people yelling at each other, and some of them goes to say, "That was great TV. We got to have you back."
oh yeah, and
You're not supposed to do gray area. You're not supposed to stop and think. You're supposed to go. And I was on a lot of those shows, by the way.
well,
Um,
you were a pundit, okay?
I was a pundit. I was on the first one was I think some show that was on MSNBC when it first came out.
When Laura
Ronald
Ingram was on, perhaps. Remember
it
Michael
was
Savage on MSNBC?
the Savage Nation. I didn't agree with Michael Savage, but I used to. I got a kick of listening out.
Alan
Listen,
Keyes was on MSNBC.
yes,
Someone
but
needs to
this
write
was
a history of these shows.
it was Ronald Reagan Jr.
Ronald
and
Reagan.
and I forget the name of the lady who is now a conservative pundit, very prominent.
Was it Laura Ingram?
Then, no, and then later on CNN, Robert Sanchez was a Cuban American, and then he said something about the Jews running the media, and he was done. He was cancel culture, and the person who sort of took his place was Don Lemon in the days when Don Lemon was a more serious, really serious person. He didn't like getting people screaming back. They told me Don doesn't like people talking over each other. He doesn't want you screaming back and forth. And he was very, and I think he had me on like 12 times as a part of a roundtable. And the last time he had me, it was just me as an independent blogger because he read the blog. I think it's because he pretty much agreed with a lot of what I wrote, but he was very issue oriented. Of course, later, because of the way CNN went, they got into all this happy talk thing and wearing your emotions on your sleeve stuff.
Well, what's interesting, someday somebody should write a book on the evolution of pundits like Tucker Carlson or Jennifer Rubin on the other side. It'd be fascinating. Well, of course, maybe it wouldn't be fascinating just for nerds.
And Tucker Carlson was the son of a prominent San Diegan who ran the Voice of America.
Oh yeah.
I know in San Diego for years. He was a very serious pundit that people thought was the wave of the future.
Yeah, you read his book,
writers
written in 2002 or so, or 2003.
He was a very good writer.
Yeah. Okay, I want to know. I'm looking behind you. I'm seeing. It looks like some showbiz people on the wall.
Oh, they're ventriloquists. Yeah.
Yeah, but I want to ask you. Give me some vintage. I know you love vintage comedians. You've sent me books on Charlie Chaplin, because I guess I can see that you have a lot of stuff in your house, so sometimes I end up getting it. Okay, but I really enjoyed these things. But tell me some of the vintage comedians who influenced you.
Well, I idolized Jackie Gleason, and I watched and I idolized him so much that I had a recording, an old tape recorder that when I went to India as a college student, I played that one episode over and over again on the tape recorder. And I idolized his Honeymooners. I loved and I remember from the 50s, his variety show, which, by the way, Hanna-Barbera ripped off to do the Flintstones.
Well, yeah, the Flintstones is definitely Jackie Gleason.
And then Gleason was thinking of suing, but he decided not to because he didn't want to be the person who sued Fred Flintstone. That's a true story.
Gleason's an interesting guy because he grew up with a father who abandoned him when he was 9. His mother had to go to work, and I like the idea that a guy like Gleason and also Ernie Kovac, who we'll probably talk about later, they worked their way up from the very bottom to get where they were. Gleason's first job was for $4 a week, being a master of ceremonies. But the talent was there, and Gleason really wasn't a big name, though. He was always big. Well, he was always big, okay, but he wasn't a major guy until television came. Why do you think television made him even bigger than he was before?
Well, the Dumont Network had just started, and they put him on, pretty much let him do it. First, he was on Life of Riley.
He was the original Life of Riley, right?
Yes.
The 1 year that was canceled. Then Ben
was 1949 or something like that. But then he left to go to Dumont, and they pretty much let him do what he wanted. He just kept experimenting with sketch comedy. But then finally switched from Dumont over to CBS, and he went through evolutions. I remember very well his early CBS show, because I used to watch it with Ray Bloch as the orchestra leader, and I saw some of the ones later as an adult that I remembered from when I was a kid, and remembered exactly what was going on when I saw them. Then he left to do a musical called Take Me Along, produced by David Merrick, who hated Gleason. They didn't work well at all together. And then he went back in 1962, the same year that Lucille Ball came back. Was it 62? '62, the same. So your Lucille Ball came back with the Lucy Show,
That's on
and
TV every morning. Yeah.
yeah, and he started the American Scene magazine, which was a series of blackouts.
That's what I'm thinking
Then,
about. Gleason's a
then
blackout guy, definitely.
I like the blackouts.
Yeah.
He later says some of those looked like they were written in the restroom because he had new writers. And then in 1966, he came back with a new format, which was the Honeymooners, which he had tried once as a musical. Well, once during the 50s, and then he tried it again in his early 1960 show. And then he decided, that was in 65 and 66, to alternate with hours of original musicals with original music. So he did a whole series of color Honeymooners, which critics generally hate because it was color and they had these big production numbers. People said how awful the music was. It was like Broadway music.
It was good music.
1960, very good Broadway music.
I don't know
Very,
if Sheila McRae was right for Alice, though.
no, I don't think she was. He hired her. And
Yeah.
Ed Norton was there. And Gene King was brought, for whatever reason, they didn't invite Joyce Randolph back. And they got Gene King.
She wasn't bad.
Not Gene.
I got to tell you one thing about Gleason. One time I was watching, I'm going to make a true confession here, a Gomer Pyle episode, okay? And there was this hilarious woman on. She was a shrew. And I looked at the credits, and her name was Pert Kelton. And I
Yes.
had to find Pert Kelton information. I've become a big Pert Kelton fan.
She was a Music Man, too.
Yeah, she was also in Bed of Roses, which is a great
Yep.
pre-code film. But she was the original Alice.
Yes.
And I'm so glad they have the lost episodes because I just think that she was a combative Alice, wasn't she?
That's right. And the story was that Gleason tried, but he couldn't get the powers that be to let him have her. So he auditioned for Alice, and then Audrey Meadows auditioned, and he didn't want her because she was too beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
So she waited and went home and set up a new audition, I guess under a different name, whatever. And she showed up without doing any makeup. She did the audition right after getting out of bed, no makeup, no hair, and he loved her, so he hired her.
She was good. And she, of course, was a victim of McCarthyism and stuff like
Yes.
that at the time.
Yes.
So that's why she didn't continue, although he kept her on for a while. Now,
She played Alice's mother on a couple of episodes.
yes, in fact, with the Sheila McRae, she was the mother. And I enjoyed seeing that. She died tragically in the late 60s of a heart attack.
You're talking about
Pert Kelton.
Kelton, yeah.
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 But Gleason was sort of like Bob Hope. As the 70s came, his movies weren't doing very well. And then he managed to get a role in Smokey and the Bandit, where
Yes.
Hal Needham let him do anything he wanted, and he resurrected his career, didn't he, at that time?
Yes.
And he
Yeah.
also, well, once again, you talked earlier about how he was allowed to do things the way he wanted to.
That's right.
And I think their success to the Smokey and the Bandit, they let him improvise all he wanted to.
Yeah, and in Smokey and the Bandit, he invented most of the gags, like the one where he has toilet paper stuck in.
Yeah.
Those are all his thing. He could ad-lib any lines he really wanted. He could do anything he wanted with the part, and audiences loved him.
Do you have that kind of thing in Hollywood now, where you let anybody do anything they want?
I don't think anybody does that.
They don't do that anymore, right?
No.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about Ernie Kovacs. You said it was another influence when you.
I loved Ernie Kovacs as a kid. My mother hated him. A lot of people didn't like Ernie Kovacs. He's an acquired taste. But I remember all of his blackouts. Like if anybody wants to go and look up Ernie Kovacs, look for the Muriel cigar commercials. Like
Well, one was underwater, wasn't it?
Yes. And this comes up, and there's this beautiful woman in the bathtub.
Yeah.
Or the one that's in slow motion, where he's pretending he's in slow motion, a gunfight, and the guy shoots him. He inhales a cigar, and all the smoke comes out in holes. And Ernie Kovacs believed in blackouts. He took it to another level, way ahead of his time. He did something called Eugene. If you've never seen Eugene, which is on where he basically had the camera like upside down and different angles of the camera, so a ball would be rolling
and going the other way, and something would come back when you do something. It'd be coming back when you pour milk. He'd pour milk and it'd come back, right?
It'd come back. And then the Nairobi Singers, which defies any kind of explanation. People in ape suits pretending like they're very slow. As Jack Lemmon said, and he did a thing about the best of Ernie Kovacs. He said times were slower then. It was very slow comedy where they're doing the Nairobi, people dressed up in ape suits playing instruments like this, and then one of them hits the other one on the head. And he did things where he played a piece of music and matched things in the kitchen, like a tea kettle
It's
going off.
amazing.
Very, very, and they're still, you can still look at them on YouTube.
Yeah, I
But
saw
he,
one on YouTube where he's looks like he's sitting on on the ceiling.
yeah,
It's just amazing how he could do these kind of things that you would think you'd need total special effects for, but he did it by putting black holes
that's
over.
right.
He looked
Yep.
through a woman by putting a black hole there. He
Yes,
also
he has one where an automobile drops down off the,
yeah.
and they gave him a finite amount of money. He would spend whatever he got to do to get the effect he wanted.
You know, he also created essentially the 7 to 10 shows we have now, right?
Yes.
He was the first one. What was it called? The Morning on 13 or something. I can't, Morning on 3 or something in New York. And
Well, Laughing was pretty much Ernie Kovacs.
oh, it was definitely, yeah. But I mean, the shows you see on the Today Show owe
Yes.
themselves to Ernie Kovacs also,
Yes.
because he would talk about cooking. He would talk about
Right.
a whole bunch of different stuff.
Right.
It's kind of a tragedy. He died right when he was becoming really,
He was really at the top at that point. He
yeah,
really was.
yeah.
In fact, they showed his last one. I still remember. They showed his last one. I guess it ran on ABC about 4 days after he died, or 5 days after he died. It ran on ABC.
Wow. He won a Emmy posthumously, I think, right?
Yeah.
Um, so name a couple more comedians who you identify with.
I love Jack Benny, and it's funny with Jack Benny. I remember when I was a kid, when he was an older guy doing the show. But then when I went over to India, to Spain, as I said, their TV left much to be desired, but they did have American Armed Forces radio. So I would buy a ton of cassettes, and I'd tape every one of the shows I heard on American. I had so many of them on cassettes, and I listened to every single Jack Benny show over and over again. And that was my favorite show out of all. But they had, Jack Benny, Eddie Cantor, things way before my time. The Whistler, Lights Out. They had all the radio shows were being played on Armed Forces radio. And then when I came back from there, back here, I started watching the early TV shows on DVDs on first the day before cassette, video cassette, and then DVDs. But then again, I found that I could get the radio programs and listen to them on the radio. So and they had a lot of them on Sirius XM golden age of radio, and I listened to so many of those over and over again, whole cassette tapes. So I learned a lot by listening to Jack Benny over and over again, not watching it.
And you mentioned someone compared you to Jack Benny earlier, right?
That's right. He thought my pauses and the way my characters give me a hard time remind him very much of Jack Benny.
Benny was a guy who could just by saying the word "well" bring laughter, and the way his eyes would look, and the way his head would tilt, and things like that. And I see that in ventriloquism. I see it in your dummies and yourself sometimes, And so he was a guy who also worked well with was his name Rochester?
Rochester.
Yeah.
He made Rochester the highest paid African American star in the country.
He did.
And he always gave him the really good punchlines. And so some people have considered them almost a comedy team. But he gave him the best punchlines, and he loved Rochester. And Rochester was supposed to have a really big house, and Benny paid him top dollar to be on the show.
Jack Benny is one of those people, I just have to look at him and I laugh. All right. Okay, it goes like that.
Now, if you go back and look for some of the great ones that you'll see on YouTube. One is a Jack Benny Christmas special with Mel Blanc being. Have you seen that one as
years ago? I'll have to watch it again.
With the ending.
Remind me.
The ending? Well, there's several versions. The one endings where he finally gets so tired, sick of Jack Benny, he shoots himself off camera. And then there's another one. If you look at the one with Jack Benny and Johnny Ray, that shows that show. So that would have been in 1952 or 53. Jack Benny. That's on YouTube. And if you look halfway through it, there's a thing where Jack Benny, he wants to hire Johnny Ray. Ray wants a lot of money. It's too much money for him. Then he meets Johnny Ray, who tries to show him why he's worth the money. He sings a song, and Jack Benny starts crying and then going like this and going like this. And he becomes a groupie and finally starts tearing his clothes off. But it's just an incredible. Go back and watch the thing with Johnny Ray.
I'll watch the thing with
Jack
Johnny
Benny
Ray.
did on that thing. Oh my God.
When you talk about comic timing, it's hard to think of anybody but the Three Stooges, right? Are you a fan of the Three Stooges?
I love the Three Stooges.
That's funny because Columbia had dozens of people on the doing their comedy shows, but the Stooges are the ones that basically we watch today,
That's right.
and they got paid pitifully, I think, by
Terrible.
Columbia. But give me an idea, give an example of why their comic timing was so good. How did
Well,
they,
I think
how
that,
did they manage
well,
that?
first of all, they came out of vaudeville because they worked with Ted Healy, who died of
I've seen
very
some early Ted Healy movies.
Mm.
One is, I can't remember what it's called. Joe and I bought it. What's the Ted Healy movie called? Oh, yeah,
Soup to Nuts.
Soup to Nuts, yeah. That pops up on the Fox movie channel sometimes
Yeah,
too. So tell me,
he was considered one of the top talents of his day.
yeah,
Really a top star.
he's
His
also in
famous
he's
cousin,
also in a movie with Peter Lorre, I think,
is he?
called Mad Love. I think Ted Healy's the, or it could don't
But
quote.
The Stooges had that vaudeville type timing,
Yeah,
and they discovered early on that if they added sound effects, that made the violence look cartoonish, and they just stuck with that. And this tell you something about the Stooges. When I was in the San Diego unit, I was working in the Oceanside Bureau, and a guy named Tony Perry, who became my editor and one of
hmm,
my best friends, I'm still in touch with Tony. He, even though it wasn't my beat, he persuaded, because I saw that the Three Stooges were finally going to get a star on Hollywood Boulevard. So he went to pitch for me with the editors and got them to send me up to Hollywood to do a big story in Currents, which I wasn't writing for, but that's a big feature department, a
hmm.
big story about the Three Stooges getting a star on Hollywood Boulevard. I talked to Milton Berle, who gave me the greatest quotes, and then he later called the newspaper and told my television editor he thought that I asked really good questions. But and then I talked to Gary Owen from Laugh-In. He was on the. I talked to him on the phone, and then I went to the actual ceremony. You could tell Moe's daughter and Larry's daughter did not like each other at all, and that was right. That was before their lawsuit, which we know. Bela Lugosi Jr., who's a lawyer, was a lawyer, and they got sued, and then they had to divide all the stuff evenly between everybody, right? And but there was a real tension, and Joe Besser was there, and I met him. And then Joe DeRita was blind by that point and couldn't come, but his wife was there. And but you could tell the two that they did the Howards and the Fines did not get along at all.
That's funny because the actors were good friends. I know that.
Oh, they were good friends,
Yeah.
but the descendants weren't because apparently most of the money from the things was going to the Howard family, or a lot of it.
Ah, okay.
So they wanted an even distribution
Well,
of the
that makes
profit,
sense. That makes sense.
and they got Bela Lugosi's son to do the.
You know, Bela Lugosi Jr. Was a pretty tough
Yeah,
attorney for a
yeah.
long time. I know he did not
He was
like.
out for blood.
Yeah, he didn't like Bela Lugosi's last wife. Made her life a
Oh,
little bit
really?
miserable at the end. But going back to the, or the three.
I'm watching by the now by the way in sequence again.
What are you
I watched
watching?
the set, and I'm actually watching the Stooges on Amazon Prime. It has everything that the whole set of everything, and I'm watching them now in progression.
I love to see their first one, which was told in that form they had in the 30s where they
The
rhymed.
Women Haters.
Yeah, because if you watch a movie called oh gosh, I'm getting older, Joe, and things don't come to me immediately. But Harry Langdon and the guy that made the jazz singer, what's his name? He was a famous actor. They made a movie where he was quote unquote the mayor of New York.
Al Jolson.
Al Jolson, yeah. It wasn't called the
Yeah.
mayor of New York, but
Hmm.
it was done entirely in couplets, in
Really?
most of it, yeah.
Hmm.
And it's a wonderful film, but it bombed at the box office.
Yes.
And I can't remember what it's called right now. That always drives me crazy. But that's why I love the first Stooge so much to watch that. Woman Haters, it's called. And,
Women
and,
Haters.
and,
And
and
that wonderful woman that was the center of it.
she
She
died.
died.
Yeah.
She died very
Yes.
young.
So tragic. I was reading that. But the Stooges, do you think the first three were the ones that worked the best?
I think so.
Yeah.
And then Shemp only came back because Mo wanted to continue the act. And Shemp, as we know, became a very prominent character actor, comedian on his own.
Yeah, in
Uh,
fact, he's in a lot. I have a hobby of collecting Columbia shorts that aren't
mhm,
the Three Stooges.
mhm.
And Shemp made a lot of them. Actually, Curly
Yes.
Joe DeRita made a few too, and Joe Besser made some also. They
I
all,
didn't I didn't like Joe Besser's ones alone at all.
No, you
I
like
agree.
you
I
told
agree
me
with
you like him with the Abbott and Costello show though.
Yeah, I loved him.
Yeah.
Well, that's no Joe Besser. I'm talking about Joe DeRita.
Oh,
Joe
Dorit.
Besser's comedy shorts were great.
Yeah.
Joe DeRita's comedy shorts. One critic described him as a poor man's Lou Costello, and I agree.
Yeah, I think I reviewed one on the blog, and you're probably right. I wanted to
Mhm.
see one. A lot of guys had some good work on the Columbia. Harry Langdon
Yes,
did. So did
yes,
even Buster Keaton had 10 shorts,
yes,
and they
hmm
actually released those. Have you ever seen the Harry Langdon Hal Roach shorts?
yes. Those were not bad.
They're not bad. Not all of them are good, but there's one called it's about a milk toast. What is his name? I can't. This is terrible, but it's a good one where he suddenly meets a professor who makes him like a panther or something. All right, it's called the shrimp. The shrimp. It's a good one.
Mhm.
But so
And how about
what?
Edgar Kennedy?
Oh, Kennedy's great too. Yeah, definitely. I love watching. I go to YouTube and watch the ventriloquism. Oh, Edgar Kennedy. You mean the guy who
Kennedy,
the slow burn guy?
one burn guy.
Yeah, I just bought. I reviewed a book of on Edgar Kennedy
Really?
several years ago. I'll send you a link to it
Yeah.
because he was in so many movies.
Yes.
Another guy who was in so many movies. I reviewed a book on him. Was oh, you know who he is. He was always the fatter guy screaming in the Three Stooges. Um,
Vernon Dent.
Vernon Dent. Yeah,
I love him.
yeah, he's great. He's also if you ever wanted to have Harry Langdon and
Mhm.
Vernon Dent, you could call them as a team because they made a lot, but a lot of them were lost,
Oh, really?
unfortunately. Yeah. So there was one you want to talk about Laurel and Hardy a little bit too.
I love, and there's a story about Laurel and Hardy I got to share with you.
Okay.
I loved Laurel and Hardy when I was a kid. In fact,
Oh, that's great. That's great.
so
That, that's good.
um,
Yeah.
well, Laurel and Hardy, I loved them when I was a kid, and I never stopped loving them. And even now, I will go back and watch Laurel and Hardy. I had the full set they put out on them some years ago, and I've watched everyone that they made. But I was at a Laurel and Hardy Sons of the Deserts
Mm.
meeting in Culver City. And I got this call about was it 1990 or 92 or 91? I'd just gone full time from Laurel and Hardy people, and that the Sons of the Desert, which had found out about me. And they said, we were wondering if you could come and do a show for our Sons of the Desert. Was it we'll call the Way Out West tent? That was what it called.
Yeah.
The Way Out West tent in Culver City. And she said, it's going to be one of the last ones with all these people that are vanishing from the earth. And I agreed to do it. And I was trying to think what I do. And I went to sleep. And all of a sudden I woke up and I said, happy birthday, sweet 16. You're in our hearts and in our dreams. And I sat down and wrote a perfect lyric, including Finlayson. Perfect. It just was somehow there. And I wrote this lyric within a couple of minutes. It fit the song perfectly. So I was going to come up and do that. And I was going to do a couple of shticks. And I thought, well, gee, I'm going to be original. I'm going to do the lip sync where they lip sync Tutti Frutti. And I'm going to bring Boulder hats. Little did I know everybody has a Boulder hat there. And I came. So first of all, when I did my show, my dummy John was joking around with this older lady who I later realized was Stan Laurel's daughter.
Really?
I did the lip sync. I got about 4 people up there. There was this younger, he looked like he was 21 or so. He got up, he held the Boulder hat in his hand, and people laughed. I only found out later it was Stan Laurel's grandson, who looked just like him at a young age.
Really? Fantastic.
Yeah. At that meeting,
Yeah.
you'll like this. At that meeting, I sat down at the table with the woman who did the voice for Crusader Rabbit, and the woman who was in the R Gang. Remember the one about the old R Gang with the rich boy who takes the little girl in his fire engine?
Yes.
I was sitting at the table with her,
Wow.
and then I saw Tommy Butch Bond. Oh, well, Whitey from the Barry Boys was there, and I saw Tommy Butch Bond, who was one of my favorites in the Little Rascals. And I went over to him and I said, I watched you a lot when I was a little boy. He said, really? I watched you a lot when you were a little boy. And he came over to me after I was finished doing what I did. He said, hey, keep doing what you're doing. In Fast forward 3 years, 2 years. I go to the Escondido swap meet. Who's sitting there but at a table, but bent over? Tommy Butch Bond, with the sign says Tommy Butch Bond, original Butch,
Wow.
Little West, signing autographs. I said, I saw you at the way out west time. He said, yes, you keep doing what you were doing.
That's a great anecdote. That's fantastic.
But they took us to all the scenes for Laurel and Hardy, the house they demolished. They would take us to the stairs. It was a tour of all the areas that they.
One of my big thrills was going up the stairs and down the stairs.
Yes.
Recently with my family. My favorite Laurel and Hardy films are probably the one with the stairs. Okay.
Yes.
And also, I hate it when I can't remember film titles. Drive me crazy. But the other one is Sons of the Desert. I think is a classic too. And I like the fact that I'm not really a huge Chase fan, but I think he's great in that movie, Charlie Chase.
Well, also, I got to tell you that when I was younger, I watched Stan Laurel. As I got older, I just watched Oliver Hardy. Talk about a genius. Talk about an absolute genius. Utter genius. The way he looked at the camera.
Oh, that look he gives.
Gives. And just the way he reacts. They were both geniuses, but Stan Laurel got a lot more credit than Oliver Hardy.
And that's not necessarily fair. You're right.
Yeah.
I like the way Hardy would exclaim pain too. Ooh! I don't know if it was you, but someone sent me one time, and I ended up purchasing some Stan Laurel.
I sent them to you.
Yeah, they're early 20s before he was a team member.
Mm-hmm.
And they're pretty. Laurel and Harry Langdon. I'm a huge Harry Langdon fan. Laurel and Langdon were good friends.
Were they?
Yeah, really, really good friends. But actually, even closer than Laurel, Langdon was close friends with. He called him Babe. All right,
Babe.
Oliver Hardy. What did you think of the film that came out a few years ago with Laurel and Hardy and their final tour?
Well, they fictionalized a lot of it.
They do that.
Certainly, no stretch of the imagination was Oliver Hardy that fat when he was down to almost nothing. You probably saw the thing on YouTube.
I've seen the picture of just before he died.
Tons of weight, and they compressed a bunch of things. But I think it was a very, very good portrayal of him.
I love the film. It's not true that Harry Langdon betrayed Laurel. Laurel wanted him to take that role.
Right.
It was called Zenobia, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's unfair because Zenobia is not a Harry Langdon film. It's an Oliver Hardy film.
Right.
But do you think that the later films lacked the pizzazz of the earlier films they made when they went to a bigger studio?
Well, Fox, I've got through all those, and most of those have the reputation of being terrible. And I watched a few. I haven't watched all of them, but they weren't as bad as people said.
I think you're true, because I just watched one with an annoying little kid who, and then also some guy that goes off to. Well, I'm going to tell you something. My favorite Fox film, people are going to gasp who are in the know, is The Big Noise.
Really? Because
I think it gives Oliver Hardy a chance to shine in that movie. I don't mind the one where I remember. Well, I'm just going to go back to the Hal Roach because my kids. I turned on the one where they're in France, and they end up dying at the end. They're going down in a parachute or something. I can't remember the name of the title right now, but my kids just laughed and laughed and laughed at that movie, and I thought to myself, to enjoy a movie like that, sometimes you need to be like a kid and just take it for what it is and everything. What do you think of Utopia?
Oh, I saw that after many years, and I was shocked. And I agree with the reviews of it that it was like, as Stan said, it was an abortion.
Yeah, it has a different name
so
in French. I can't remember.
He looked better in life after, but that was a period where he was especially sick. So he looked terrible.
Very sick.
Hardy just looked like he was going to burst as a balloon at that point.
There's a fascinating book on the making of Utopia.
Oh, really?
I read it several years ago. I have like 700 things in my Kindle. Sometimes I have to look to find them. It's because that had a lot of minds, maybe too many minds trying to make it a good movie.
Yes.
Well, anybody else you wanted to mention that you've thought about that you've had a lot of respect for within the genre?
Let's see. I like Laurel and Hardy. I never liked Red Skelton that much. A lot of people
like Red Skelton.
I watched his show, but he was not one of my favorites.
My father loved Red Skelton.
Right.
But I have him in the middle there of all these people. All right.
And I like I like Benny Hill because I like the silent stuff he did on
It's
Benny.
really unfortunate he was canceled essentially by
Yes.
because he
Yep.
was. I would go home as a 11, 12-year-old and turn on Benny
Mhm.
Hill and giggle.
He was
He
funny.
was on all the time, yeah. And like I said, I like these old Columbia Shorts people.
Mhm.
I loved Vera Vague. You ever heard of her?
It sounds very familiar.
She had some shorts for Columbia. She was a sort of a woman with a tittery voice all the time, but that wasn't her real name. That was her stage
Mhm.
name. I like Christine McIntyre, who
Oh,
never starred but was always a sidekick to the Stooges and others.
I like Thelma Todd and Zazu Pitts.
Oh, they're great. But also, Thelma Todd was also with Sassy Pitts. They're the best ones. But she also was with what's her name? She she replaced Sassy Pitts. I can't remember her name now. Patsy Kelly. She was with
Yeah.
Patsy
I
Kelly.
didn't like those as much.
Yeah. Well, Sassy Pitts fit better with Thelma Todd than Patsy
Yeah.
Kelly. But yeah, Turner Classic Movies. If you're willing to just check and see what's on the shorts,
Hmm.
sometimes you can watch them. Sometimes.
I've
And
got I've got a disc set of those shorts.
there's a guy named James Nabar. I haven't had him on the show, but he's a writer, and he
Mhm.
did a book on the Thelma Todd, Kelly, and
Mhm.
and Pitt's shorts. Also, who's the guy? He always looks old, even though he isn't old. Who did about 45 Columbia shorts? I really should. You see, I talk off the top of my head. All right, so I'm going to look up something really quick. All right.
Okay.
Okay. So let me see if I can find it. Andy something. Andy Andy Clyde.
Andy Clyde, of course. A
Yeah.
lot of people loved Andy Clyde.
Well, he made except for the Stooges, he made the most Columbia shorts.
Really?
Yeah, he made like 78.
Wow.
And he was also on a memorable episode of the Andy Griffith Show. I like to watch these comedians. One of the fun things about watching shows in the 70s is you see people who were stars in the 30s and 40s,
Yes.
long dead now. And it's kind of fun to watch, to see them in there. Unless it's the Love Boat. I can't take the Love Boat. But anything else, I really like to watch some of these shows. Like I told you, Ernie Kovacs, well, he was still hot then, but he was on I Love Lucy. I'll never forgot. He was
Yes.
very good on that one. And Andy Clyde was in the Andy Griffith Show episode that I really enjoy. And it's just fun to see those people. Even Joe Besser. Now, this is nothing to be proud of, but he was in a zero budget film with John Agar called The
Really?
Hand of Death, where he's actually killed. He's a gas station attendant killed. He's in the movie for 5 minutes.
Well, he was on the Joey Bishop show. He was very good on the Joey Bishop.
He was, yeah.
Very, very good.
What was, I have not watched Laughing because I can't find it.
It's hard to find them.
Yeah, and
I
I
don't. I
like
think you have to buy a DVD or something.
probably
I don't think you get.
it was on a station. I don't know what it's called. Maybe Classy Comedy or something. But
SCT, SCTV.
no, this is a station you have now, but they
Oh.
took it off the air. I love to watch that show because they show the Lucy Show. It's
Mhm.
called Catchy Comedy. It had a different name, and now it's called Catchy Comedy. And it's fun to be able to see these people. Like I'll watch the Lucy Show, and I'll see that guy. I guess he became her co-star after Desi Arnaz left, but his catchword is, well, it's Mr. Mooney's his name, all right.
Oh, I
I
know
don't,
that.
I can't. Gil Gordon. Gil Gordon's his name, I
And
think.
he died. He died not too far from here. He was living in a rest home about
Yeah.
20 minutes from here.
And,
Yeah, I love Gil Gordon.
and there's certain,
I loved him on Armis Brooks because I was listening to those old shows.
yeah,
He was the principal. He was so good, and even the TV version, which was just like the radio version, he was great.
he was good. There was also an actor. It could be Gil Gordon for all I know, but someone would walk up to him and he'd say, "Well," and then that was like a catchphrase.
Frank something or other.
What?
That was his character on Jack Benny.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah. And I just,
he bumped into him everywhere. I have to look up the name, but yeah, he was on all the Jack Benny shows,
he was
and
funny.
then in Warner Brothers cartoons, Mel Blanc did a version of him too, in those.
And you can just laugh knowing what's coming, more or less.
Right.
I also love the old Groucho Marx "You Bet Your Life" show,
Yes.
and I
Mhm.
haven't seen those for a long time. I guess I could look on YouTube for them, but they used to be on all the time. I'm an Ed Wood fan. If you're not, I understand. Okay, but one time, Tor Johnson, a Swedish
Mhm.
wrestler,
Oh wow.
was
Mhm.
on. He's on some Ed Wood movies and other movies. He was also in a Bob Hope movie the Lemon Drop Kid too, and he was in a W.C. Fields movie called Man on the Flying Trapeze, playing a
I love
wrestler.
this field. I love
Oh,
WC.
W.C. Fields is great. You know what? W.C. Fields was, I think, canceled a little bit in the 80s and 90s, but he's back. You know,
Is he now?
yeah. I mean, he's more popular now. I see him more. He was on college campuses in the 70s, 80s,
Yes,
and then he
I
sort of
remember that.
disappeared.
That's when I really got into him. Yeah,
If you have a chance,
I've
you
seen
know,
all of his movies.
have you seen Running Scared?
That he's in
It's
that?
a
I didn't see
silent
that.
movie. It's the original Man on the Flying Trapeze, the
Okay.
silent version, and they have a Blu-ray out.
Hmm.
It's fun the movie, but what was I? Where was I going? Oh, I was talking about Groucho Marx. Well, Tor Johnson's on a You Bet Your Life show, and he goes after Groucho Marx, and it's kind of funny. There are some films out. I don't know if you've even seen them. Um, one is called Skidoo.
Oh, that I never saw that one.
Okay, they got like these reputations, the worst films ever made.
Mhm.
And another one's called The Finks, which is pretty bad. But
The
what's
what?
The Finks, Phynk,
Huh.
okay? And they're notoriously bombs, all right? But they have all the old guys on. They have Gleason and Groucho is in this
Yes.
movie. And there's a scene in The Finks, which you have to see it to believe it sometime. You can read my review of it. But anyways, they have a whole bunch of kidnapped celebrities
Mhm.
in Albania. Okay, and they're all doing one-liners, and Bergen and McCarthy are in it,
Oh, wow.
and Hunts Hall and Leo Gorsi are even in it. And this is just before Gorsi died.
Hmm.
I just have so much fun talking about this genre stuff. Okay, I can go on forever. But what advice do you have to somebody who's going to wants to be an entertainer today?
Well, in a way, some people think it's because you've got social media, you got TikTok for young people, because they really do want young people most of the time. Um, America's Got Talent, shows like that. They are able to get more exposure and get out there than they used to before. Usually they'd be sort of in the hinterland somewhere, nobody knew about them. But that also means with more exposure, sometimes they may not be ready for it when they're getting out there, or they may win something and not really know what to do next, you know? So, but I think social media, I think TikTok is definitely a good thing for people to use. I know if you can get very inappropriate stuff, people say on TikTok and all that, but it's pretty much what you stop and look at. If you stop for a minute on something by accident, you're going to get hundreds of those videos.
Yeah.
So you look at something else. But I love TikTok. I have like, what is it? Not as much as Landon Harvey, who's a good friend of mine who's 23. He has like 1.5 million followers on TikTok. But I have like look it up. I have like on TikTok right now. It's respectable given the fact I'm an old fart. I mean, really, TikTok was not designed for people like me, but I've got what is it? Oh, 1 second. Come on.
What's your TikTok handle?
It's just at Joe Gandelman.
Okay,
Some of them are good, some of them are terrible. I experiment, some are really bad. 41.3K followers,
Bam.
170.1K likes.
That's good. You know, I don't do the TikTok stuff. We have a TikTok page, but I thought we might take a snippet of the dummies on our thing, put it
Yeah.
on there. And
Yeah.
I have to do this little spiel now because we're trying to grow. So thank you, Joe Gandelman.
Thank you.
And if you get back to the Weber County Fair, come see us, have dinner
I
or
would love
something. All right. And we're at Plan 9 Crunch on YouTube. Give us a subscribe. And also, we're at TikTok. My daughter knows more about it than I do. But TikTok, Plan 9 Crunch, we have some stuff up there. And we have a Facebook page called Plan 9 Crunch Podcast and Blog. And we have an actual blog called plan9crunch.com where we've reviewed more than 1,000 movies on there since 2008. And in fact, you reviewed Musty Suffer DVD on that blog, which is also on your Moderate Voice. People go to the Moderate Voice. It's got a wonderful entertainment section, among other things. And Joe, we've really enjoyed this. Thank you.
Hey, I really enjoyed this.
And I'm going to say what we always say because I started it and now I can't get away from it. That's a wrap.